going to start a new Mishnah. The new Mishnah on bottom of Ayin Vav, new Perek, Ayin Vav on Bais. It's 76b on the very bottom. It says Hataida, Korban Taida, Thanksgiving offering. Pesabah Chamish San Yerushalmius. It came from 5 sa. Morning. 5 sa Yerushalmius. Means that was the measurement that was used in Jerusalem. Shehein Sheish Midbarius, which is 6. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It's not here.
Right. Find it later.
Let me see. Last of the Bais. So, let me explain what this is. What's going on is that in the desert we use certain measurements. The names of the measurements when it came to Israel would stay the same, but the amounts were adjusted. So the measurements became slightly larger. So what used to be a sa, I have to do it different, was added onto it 1/6, which will explain what a sixth is, and became a little larger. So what used to be 6 sa was now only 5 sa. Follow? I don't know if we have anything comparable to that. I mean, we have the measurements in the Celsius and Kelvin, which starts at a different level, but that doesn't change the thing itself. You do have a degree. You have an American dollar and you have a Canadian dollar, so that would be an example of it's the same word, but it's a different amount. Okay, so we're saying the Taida had to come from 5 sa Yerushalmius, but that's really 6 sa from the desert, which is shtei ephas. It doesn't matter, it's the same amount. It's 2 epha. Now, ha'epha is shalish sa'in. We're continuing with the midbariyas now. If there are 6 sa, and there's 2 epha, so then each epha is 3 sa. Now, how many isarin in an epha? It's esser misarin. It's actually 10 isarin per epha, but because you have 2 epha, so you have 20. Now, if you have 20 isarin, so you have 2 types of loaves that are brought. There's actually 4 types, but we'll divide them into 2 categories, 1 and 3. We'll have one type was chametz, that's asara lachametz, and then ba'asara lamatzah, and you have 10 for the matzah. Now, in the matzah category, you had 3 types. So if you have 10 isarin for chametz, and we're going to see that you have 10 loaves of bread, so that means each loaf was 1 isarin, easy. If you have 30 types of matzah, and you only have 10 isarin, so you're going to need to have 3 1/3 of loaves for each isarin. 3 1/3 loaves for each isarin.
For each type.
For each.
We'll see. Okay,
so it says like this. Asara lachametz. The 10 for the chametz is easy.
Mm-hmm.
That's isarin l'chala. each isaron goes for 1 challah. You only have 10, and you have 10 challahs. Asar lematzah is the problem. Asar lematzah, you have 10 isaron for the matzah. However, the matzah you have 30 different types. You have 30 different loaves because you have 3 types, and each one has 10. So uba matzah shalish minim, you have 3 different types. What are the 3 types? Chalis, rikikin, or revucha. Nimtzu, what comes out? Shleisha esrainim v'shlish. You have 3 1/3 of the isaron, 3 1/3 isaron, because you only have 10. So you have to divide 10 by 3. Now each third of 10 isaron is going to go per type. So l'chol min umin for each type. Now what that means is that b'shalish chalash isaron, but you need to have 3 chalas per each isaron, because it will be 10 times 3, which is 30. 3 chalas per isaron will be 30. Okay, so let's see. I don't know if this is going to be helpful. What I did here is the taida, my scraps. Right. I wrote taida is 2 ephah. That's how much it needs to be. 2 ephah equals 20 isaron, 20 yisranim, which is 6 sah. We're talking about an ephah is 10 isaron, and 3 sahs per ephah. Okay, now you have easy. The chametz ones are just divided into the 10. Those lines going down are the isaron. So each one is a challah. The matzah has 3 different types. So the way it's going to work is that you're going to need 10 per third. 10 per third. So I divided up the different types with the different shades of line, right? 10 per third, and then the last is the 10th number, because it's 9, 3, 3, 3. It's divided into 3 as well. Okay.
Makes sense.
It works. Primitive, but it works. Upamidus Yerushalmis. Now we go to the other type. This was the measurement is 5 sah for the taida, not 6 sah, 5 sah. Now in Yerushalayim, they didn't use isaron. They used a kav. That was another type of measurement. A kav. Kav means a small basket. It's a small measurement. So when you have 5 sah, you have shleishim kav. How does that work? Each sah is 6 kav. 6 times 5 is 30. So you have 5 sah, that's 30 kav. Now, if you have 30, remember that we have to divide this in half. Half is chametz and half is matzah. So 15, chamishas l'chametz, and the chamishas l'matzah. Now, how does that work? Chamishas l'chametz. If you have 15 kav for the chametz, how much is each loaf? Because you only have 10 loaves. It's easy. Kav u'mechza l'chala, 1.5. Right? You have 10 loaves, and you have 15 measurements, so it's 1.5 of the measurements per challah. Chamishas l'matzah. You have 15 for the matzah. Now you have 30 loaves of matzah. 30. So ubamatzah shalish minim. You have chalas, rikikin, or revucha. You have the loaves, the wafers, and the boiled ones. Nimtzu chameshes kaven l'chol min. Okay, so I have 5 because it's 15. So I have 5, 5, and 5 per 5 per type. L'chol min min. Ushtei chalas l'kav. And I would need 2 loaves per kav, which means a half a kav per loaf, right? And that way I'd be able to have 30 out of 15. The Gemara says that's was the hard part. Let me see if I made it clear enough in this. It's a little easier. It's just 15 kav per each one. And this we would divide by 3, and then it would be a half a kav per loaf, and this would be 1.5 kav per loaf, because this is only 10 and this is 30. So that's how we would do that. Now 5 sa is 2 ephah, which is 30 kavan, and each sa has 6 kavan. All right. The Gemara says, "Hatoida haisabah chamish sam Yerushalmius." The Toida came from 5 sa Yerushalmius. Minahani mili. Where do we know this? The Gemara is really asking, where do we know this? Is how do we know that the ephah that we were discussing before? We're going back. So that's a funny quote at the beginning. Yeah, it's a funny quote. That the Shittin Kometzes adds in, etc. So what the Gemara really is starting off with is that an ephah, there's 2 ephah for the 6 sa. How do we know the size of an ephah? Okay.
6 kav.
Now, the real issue when you study these things is the way that we made all the measurements. The scientists, they needed to find a natural occurrence that everyone can measure equally. So the time of the day was easy. We have the sun's in the middle, that's noon. When the rooster crows, sunrise, sunset, it was able to naturally to get there. What about how we measure size? That gets very difficult. How did we standardize it, that everyone should have the same measurement? So the metric system, they measured with 1 cubic centimeter of water is 1 gram, and then from that they built everything else till the speed of light and all of that. But from that you can measure kilometers, because you have exactly the gram would be the weight would match up with the size, with the distance. How are we going to find out the measurements of the Torah? What are we going to compare it to? It's all self-referencing. It's all Torah measurements. How are we going to get to? So, how do we know the size of that the ephah is actually 3 sa? So Amar Rav Chisda says the Amar Kra, the pasuk says ha'ephah v'habas teichen echad. Okay, we know that the bas.
Where does it say that?
It's a pasuk in Yecheskel. Yecheskel has these measurements. There we'll see several psukim from Yecheskel. It has one measurement. Okay, we're a step closer. Yiyalachem ma bas shalish san. Okay, just like a bas. It's a type of measurement. There's 3 sa. Ephah shalish san. We're a step closer, but ubas gufa minalan. How do you know what a bas is? Eily memidiksiv lasesis meiser achaymer habas. If you say that the meiser of a chaymer, we introduce another measurement. The 10th of a chaymer is a bas. So a chaymer would be 30 sa. A bas would be 3 sa. It would be a 10th. So therefore we know that a bas is 3 sa because it's meiser of a chaymer. The Gemara says, you don't know what a chaymer is. Why couldn't you figure it out from the ephah nami aktiv v'asiras achaymer ephah? You also know that an ephah is a 10th of a chaymer, but you didn't know what an ephah was. So you didn't know what a chaymer was. So you don't know what a bas is. So you're no closer than where we started. We still don't know what a bas is. You could have said, oh, we know it because of the ephah, but that wasn't satisfactory. So you introduced the chaymer, but you don't know what a chaymer is. So el chaymer la yadana kama have, so hachanami la yadana kama. You don't know how much a chaymer is, so you don't know what a 10th of it is. Elami hacha. Rather from here. Chayka Hashemen Abbas, Hashemen Umaiser Abbas min akur. Aseres habatim chaymer, ki aseres habatim chaymer. This pasuk introduces another term. It introduces a core. A core is 30 sa, and it says that the meiser of a core is a bas. And a core was a measurement that was being used in Babylonia. And Yecheskel wasn't in Babylonia. He was there by the Tiber River. Is that what he says? When he prophesied, he was in the exile. He was prophesying about the temple. He even prophesied about he was in the first exile. He prophesied about what was happening, Asar B'Tevis, about the destruction. So he's talking about measurements that they knew. They knew what a core was. So because he introduces a modern measurement in those days, a core, so now we know that a core is 30 sa. We know that a tenth of a core is a bas. And so we know that a bas is 3 sa. Okay. Omar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Ein meisifin ala midas yesim mishtus, v'lei ala matbeas yesim mishtus. V'amishtake le'yistake yesim mishtus. You're not allowed to, if you increase measurements, that means that you say that we're going to make it just a little bit larger. Like if we would say that a foot is not going to be 12 inches, it's going to be 13. He says you can't do more than a sixth. You can't add 2. It can't be 4. It can't be more than 14 inches if we're going to increase measurement. You can't increase coins more than a sixth. They had coins. You see, our coins are basically work with 5 or 10s. Their coins don't work like that. They have, an Isser is 8 pruta, and that's the next coin up. A pundian is 16, and it's 32, and then you have 6 ma per dinar. So it's not as easy to calculate. So when you're adding to the coins, if you are increasing the size of a coin, and you're keeping the same name, so you can't increase more than a sixth. The assumption here is because of confusion. Let's see. My time. Also, when you make profit, his last point is you can't make profit more than a sixth. This is talking about items like food items. You shouldn't sell them for more than a sixth. I don't know what is the markup on in a regular, Publix.
Small.
It's probably small. How much can they make per item?
What do you think?
Yeah. Uh-huh. 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 Okay.
Skitsy.
Yitzi Spalte.
South Florida.
Right. The kosher market is probably a little different. But I assume, I always thought that they're probably making even 1 cent an item, and they're still making a fortune.
I read somewhere that grocery stores work on very small margins, but I don't know.
Yeah, but
probably depends on that thing.
Sell so much, these
Right,
big stores.
Volume, yeah.
Okay, so my time, what's the reason for Shmuel? Eily mishum afkui tara. This is very interesting. You see, the price, the price of something could be adjusted by the mindset of people. If there's a fear that we're running out, so then everyone runs to buy, and then the price can go up. So what could happen is someone doesn't know that the measurements changed, and they sense that the price went up because the measurement just increased. So the price went. They think, oh my gosh, a saw is now, it's now $1.20. It used to be only $1. It says these things are going up over here. So they run to buy. They think there's a famine coming or something, chas v'shalom. So that could adjust the price, and then the price goes up for everyone, and it was all a hype. It was all nothing. If that's the case, then you shouldn't be allowed to increase it at all. Why a sixth? Never increase it. Rather, it's because of overcharging. The word means to oppress, but you're not allowed to overcharge someone more than a sixth for regular grocery items, more than a sixth of the value. If the person knows what you're overcharging him, then that's a different story. But if you don't say, and he realizes that over the market value, if he comes back to you and says, you overcharged me more than a sixth, then he gets the whole sale is void. So it's called a no. It's overcharging, or if you underpay, overcharging or underpaying. So the Gemara says ki hechid l'ay havi bittul merkach, so that there shouldn't be a invalid sale, because if you increase the measurements by a sixth, then you've reached the point of the margin that you're allowed to move in. V'amar Rava, that can't be the issue. Rava says, Kol davar shebmidu shemishkol sheminyan fil pachas mikdei na chayzer. Anything that's sold by size or weight or number, it doesn't work by a sixth. So if you're working about 5 sa and it's really 6 sa, or 6 sa, it's really 5 sa, and you've done that. So because you're working with exact measurements, you can't adjust it at all. There is no wiggle room there. So why are you saying that a 6 would be bittul mekach? The slightest amount would be bittul mekach. Someone goes to the store, he buys a dozen eggs, and he only gets 11. You say, oh, well, it's within a 6. I said, no. I bought 12. There's no wiggle room there that it could be either 11 or 13 or something. Okay. Elamishum Tigra. We're concerned about a merchant. Concerned that a merchant is not going to know that the size of the saw changed, the size of the measurement changed. What the merchants would do is they would go to the fields. They would buy from the homeowners the grains and stuff, and then they would take it to the market. They would sell it there. So if a merchant that's traveling from city to city and picking up grain, we're on Ayin Zion, almost 3/4 down. He goes to one city, and in that city they adjusted the measurements. He doesn't know they adjusted the measurements. So he's going to buy from them. They're allowed to adjust it until a sixth, right? Then he goes to sell it. How much is he allowed to sell, to charge? Up to a sixth. So we're concerned that if he doesn't, that if we would do it more than a sixth, he's going to be losing money. If you can adjust the measurements more than a sixth, then when he's going to sell, he's not going to be able to make money. He's going to be losing money. So therefore we limited it to a sixth. So it's kihechad l'olam tidiyana, so that he shouldn't come to Aina, because he's going to be oppressed. He's going to end up losing money. The Gemara says, you're only concerned of him being oppressed, which means that he's going to lose money, but zavin v'zavin tigri ikri. If someone buys and sells but doesn't make a profit, is that called a merchant? Right? Even if you sell a lot, but there's no profit, you have to have some little bit of profit. So here, if we're doing it at a sixth, then you can charge a sixth. There's still no profit. That's not a business. So Elam Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says different. Shmuel kra ashkach v'darash. This was not a logical discussion. This was based on a pasuk. Shmuel found a pasuk that tells us that you can't adjust measurements more than a sixth. The pasuk is in Yecheskel. It says, Hashekel esrim geira. A shekel is 20 geira. That's based on a pasuk in the Torah. Yecheskel says it. Esrim shkalim. He also says that there's 20 shkalim. We're going to add these together. So we have 20 shkalim now. Chamisha esrim shkalim. You have 25 shkalim, which is a total of 45 shkalim. Asara v'chamisha shekel. You have 15 shekel. That means you have a total of 60 shkalim. Hamana yelachem. That's a mana. 60 shekel is a mana. 60 shekel is a mana. The Gemara says, Masan varban havu. Okay. This really means, you see, a mana is 100 zuz. A zuz and a dinar is the same thing. The dinar was like the dollar. A mana was $100. 100 dinar, 100 zuz, 100 dinar. That's the big bill was the mana. a shekel and a selah is supposed to be the same coin. A shekel and a selah is supposed to be the same coin. Now, every selah had 4 dinar. Every selah had 4 dinar. How many selah would be a mana? If 100, it would be 25. Right? Every selah is 4 dinar, 4 zuz. 100 zuz is a mana. So 25 selah would be, right, 4 times 25 would be 100. How many selah do we have here that we're saying is a mana? We're saying 60. So 60 would be not 100, 60 would be 240. 4 times 60 is 240. So let's see how this works. Shma mina tlas. We see 3 things from this pasuk. First of all, we see that Shma mina shel kodesh kafel haya. First of all, it's doubled. That instead of a selah, the coins, the shekel is actually mana shel kodesh. The mana shel kodesh is double. The mana of the holy coins, which the one in the pasuk, is not 100 dinar, it's 200 dinar. That's great, but we have an extra 40. We have 240s. It should only be 200. Shma mina mesifin al amidas. We see that you're allowed to add to the measurements and to the coins, right? Because instead of 200, we have 240. They must have added. They must have made that this mana, instead of being just 200, contains in it 240. And ve'in ma'isifin yosim mishtus. And you can't add more than a sixth. Now, what we're saying is that a sixth of 200 is 40. It's not exactly a sixth, right? So the Shma mina shtusim milbar. We're seeing that a shtus is from the outside. A sixth comes from the outside. The way it works is like this. In the Torah, there's 2 ways of getting a percentage. There's one way is, let's say you were looking for a sixth. So, if you do, a sixth of a 100 would be 15. 6 of 200 would be 30, 33. And then you would add it on. You would have 233.
What does the 6 represent in percentage?
The original
A
amount
fifth
of the
is 20%.
So let's do this.
That's a 6.
16.
Yeah,
13.
something like that.
13.3.
So there's one way of doing it, milbar, which works like this. That what I do is, I want a sixth, right? I take my number that I'm dealing with, which is 200. Instead of dividing it by 6, which that's what we would do, we divide it by 5. You'd always take the full number down. You divide it by 5. So a fifth of 200 is 40, right? 4 times 5 would be 20. It's 200. So now I take that 40 and I add it on the top, add it on the outside. Now I say, look, I have a sixth. A sixth of 240 is 40. You follow? A sixth of 240 is 240. So a sixth of 240 is 40.
If you divide it into 5, then you take one of those
one of the fifths and add it on the top.
Then you got a 6.
Then I have a sixth. So that's called milbar. It's from the outside. And by the way, you should know that that's the way the Torah does all of its measurements. When it says shlish l'mitzvah, when it says you have to pay a chaimish, when you have to pay That's the way it does the measurements. It's always Mulbar. So what are we seeing here? We see three things. We see first
So
of
wait
all.
a minute. So when you say, let's say a choimish, show me how the difference would be. Let's say you
Divide
have
it by, if someone ate kachim, it's 8
if
shuma.
you had 200, let's say
Yeah.
200. How
So
do you do the
instead
choimish?
of,
So you divide it by 4?
yeah, you divide it by 4, which would mean 50. And then instead of paying 240, which would have been a fifth, he has to pay 250.
So
Right?
choimish is more than 20%.
Yeah.
And the same thing
Oh,
for...
well, oh no! When it comes to Meiser, I'm sorry. This is for those things. For Meiser and Chaimish is not like that. This is for the knasim of the. Okay. Or else giving a tenth of it, you'd have to divide it by 9, and then
you take one down and then up.
It's like the difference between markup and profit margin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
When you figure out a price based on the cost.
Now we know.
Interesting.
Selling a lot of windows.
Same thing. The margin is always bigger than the profit and the markup.
Uh-huh.
If you have 100 and you do a 20% markup, you get 120.
Okay.
But then your profit on the 120 is not 20%.
Oh, okay.
So if you take 100 divided by 0.8, then you get to 125. Then your margin is 20%.
Uh-huh.
Very good.
Very good.
It's from
That's
the
a-
window.
that's a
We
good
learn it from the
reference.
windows.
It's right from here.
It's very good.
Wow.
Mm.
Well, it's good you're here.
For sure, for sure.
I never
So I'm
would
saying
have
that
understood
the
this
thinking-
Gemara. I've been
the
learning
thinking
this
has
thing. It comes up all
continued
over.
till today.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The same system. This for the windows, right?
For whatever, yeah.
Well, no, I just want to make sure.
Amar Ravina. Masnisin nami dayaka. The Mishnah is also exact like this. Diktani hatayda hisabah chamish san yushalnias. Shem sheish midvarius. You see that you're allowed to increase a sixth. 1/6 that was added to the, and therefore it used to be 6, and now we increased the measurements, and now it's only 5. So we added to each measurement 1/6. But now when you have 5 saw, it's exactly like having 6 saw.
So it only has to do with things with the Kadoshim and Mizbeach and stuff like that.
I know it has to do with shlish b'mitzvah when you're supposed to increase your price for hither mitzvah. Like you're supposed to, if a nesrik cost 100, a kosher esrog cost $100. So for hither mitzvah, you don't pay 133. You pay 150 for hither mitzvah. Shlish milbar.
That's how missing the class for today with that trouble.
And what is the nafkamina if you're allowed to use meiser money? Because you're not supposed to use meiser money for a mitzvah.